Okay, we are joined by Danny from Thunder. How are you?
I'm very good, sir. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Loving the new album. It's great to have you guys back on track.
Well, yeah, it's only been about 20 years since we released a record in America.
They say they save the best for last, so
Let's hope that's true.
congratulations. Now you guys go all the way back, not only to the '80s, but I understand. Did you meet Luke back in college, back in '75?
That's correct. Yeah, no, in fact, we met in 1971 when we were 11 years old. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. What was it about him that you guys just really clicked?
I think we basically shared a love of music and a need to show off.
I love that. What were some of your musical heroes growing up? What was some of your common ground or some of the singers or bands that inspired you?
Well, when we started out, we just really wanted to cover all the bands that of the records that we love to listen to. So we basically learned to play the entire free catalog. Uh, Bad Company, Rolling Stones, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, all, The Who, all of those sorts of bands. They were the bands we aspired to be as good as, and obviously spent many years, learning our craft, trying to play those records correctly.
Yeah, there was definitely a magic with Paul Rogers and Paul Kossoff. That music still holds up so well today.
I agree.
And we're amazed that Paul Rogers has kept his voice so strong. It seems like it's stronger now than ever before. How do you keep your voice in shape?
To be honest with you, I think not singing very often. That's probably the answer. Don't sing very often, and you'll never lose it.
So don't over abuse it.
Yeah, I think that's probably there's some truth in that. I mean, the guys who tour extensively, they if they're wise, then they try not to abuse their voices with too much shouting and screaming, and maybe they should lay off of the smoking and the hard liquor.
Sure. So I know you obviously and Luke and Ben and Harry, you guys have been together or the as a unit a long time besides the break. Tell us about that first Thunder album. I know Andy Taylor from Duran Duran was involved in production. What are your greatest memories of making that first Thunder album?
Oh wow, there's so many. I mean, when we made that record, we'd been around the block once with a band before that, and we'd made two albums for Sony as it is now, and we basically learned that we'd made just about every mistake a young band could make. And I think having sort of been through the machine and come out the other side very disappointed, we got dropped after two albums. We spent a year thinking about it, and we came to America and spent some time in California looking at the hair bands as they were then. This is back at the end of the 80s. And we decided we wanted to start Thunder and we wanted to do it on our own terms. And when we met Andy, he basically just encouraged us to do exactly that. Every time we would kind of turn down, he would say, no, turn up. Just make it louder, more, I want more. And he just kind of managed our attitude in such a way that by the time we got to make that first album, it was, to be honest, I mean, Ben sums it up the best. He says it was like a party where an album broke out.
Wow. That's amazing. Now I know right off the bat there in 1990 you were able to do the Monsters of Rock at Donington. Who did you share the bill with that day?
Who else was on the bill? I think there was a band called the Choir Boys, Poison from your neck of the woods, and then it was, I think, Aerosmith, and then Whitesnake headline.
Wow. What are your greatest memories about walking out and seeing a crowd like that?
Well, there were 80,000 people. The first thing I remember is thinking, I can't see the back. And then the second thing was, this is really good because I can sing. I'd lost my voice 3 days before. We had a new bus driver and he left the AC on the bus, and I didn't realize it, but AC is really terrible for my voice. It dries my voice out completely. And I had no idea that the AC was on. So, and I like to talk. Anyone who knows me will tell you I'm an Olympic speaker. So, of course, I just completely wrecked my voice on the way to the show. And when we got to do the show, I killed it. And so, with 3 days to go before the biggest show of my life, I had no voice whatsoever. I went to see a doctor who used my behind like a pincushion and filled it up with steroids and said, "Do not speak for 3 days." So when I got to Donington and stood out on the stage in front of 80,000 people, I had absolutely no idea if I was going to be able to sing. So it was quite terrifying. And so the big moment for me was the realization that actually it's come back, I'm okay, this is going to be a good show. And I think the collective release of adrenaline amongst the five of us on the stage, I think is largely responsible for the reason why we had such a good show.
I guess there's really no plan B at that point. If the voice wasn't there, what would have happened?
Uh, I hate to think. I just genuinely had no idea what was going to happen. We had press and promotion all arranged. Everything got cancelled. There were rumors circulating backstage in the whole kind of tented artist area that we weren't going to show up and we weren't going to play. And we had the record company were sending a, like a drive-by or fly-by plane, with a banner on the back saying Thunder's new album out now. And it was such a lot of pressure. It was terrifying, truly terrifying. But luckily for us, the voice was there. The show was amazing. And we announced some massive shows, the biggest shows of our lives at that point, straight afterwards. And they all sold out in 5 minutes. So, I mean, it was just the most incredible weekend, really.
So I guess it made this show that much more triumphant, being able to pull it off and have all your faculty among you.
Oh, yeah, it was. It was the most incredible experience. I mean, we went from being so scared to being so elated because it went so well. But like I said before, I think part of the reason it went so well was just the adrenaline released as a result of the relief.
Sure. Now, I know with your Laughing on Judgment Day album, you had 4 top 40 hits. Tell us about that era where things were clicking so strong.
Well, I think we'd made our first album, and our first album had done so well around the world. We were extremely excited when we got back into the studio. Luke was writing like a demon. I think he wrote some of the best songs of his life at that point. That's not to say he's written some great songs since, but he certainly was on fire from a writing point of view and a creative point of view at that time. And it was just a blast making the record. And when we got out to tour, the shows were so much bigger, and it was like, wow, we finally made it. We'd only been in a band for nearly sort of 25, 30 years at that point. So to finally realize that you were in a situation where there were a lot of people who wanted to come and see you was a fantastic realization.
Fantastic. Now, obviously, in 06 too, you also had a monster of rock experience with Deep Purple, Alice Cooper, Journey, Queensryche, Ted Nugent. Tell us about that year. What was that festival like?
It was, once again, it was fantastic. We're very lucky. I think we're very lucky as a band that our music and our approach to playing live works extremely well. Not only in small clubs, it works brilliantly everywhere, but it works especially well when you add scale. So when you stick the band in front of a great big audience, especially outdoors on a bright sunny day, we're kind of the ideal festival band in that regard, because we'll step onto the stage and it's a party. A party begins then, and it's continuing after we come off. We just love those sorts of occasions because everybody's in the mood, and we're just ready to set fire to the place. So that was an amazing day. I mean, but we've had so many. We've been very lucky.
Please tell us about the making of the new album.
Well, it was a funny thing because we hadn't made a record for 6 years. And we decided that we would make a new one. And initially, we weren't sure if we wanted to. Some of us weren't sure. I certainly wasn't sure. Luke was convinced that it would be great. I really didn't want to do it unless it was going to be really brilliant. And I said this to him. So, as a kind of almost like an exercise, we decided that maybe we wouldn't commit ourselves to make a whole album. Why don't we just make some recordings, just pick the best of the material that we've got and record those songs. And if it still feels good, then we'll go back into the studio and do it again. So that was for us very different. It was very different to the way we'd done it in the past. You know, before that, we'd gone into the studio and with maybe 20 songs, recorded them all, and then just picked the best one 6 weeks later when we were finished. This time around, we only recorded maybe 3 or 4 songs per session. And then we went away and evaluated, and we talked, and Luke wrote some more songs, and it just meant that we had that distance each time between the sessions, and it was almost like he was writing to order by the end. It was almost like, well, we've got this, what do we need now? We've got this, what do we need now? And it just, I think we ended up with a much stronger album, and I think we were that much fresher each time we went back into the studio. We were that much more excited about it, that I think the end result was a much, much better album. Obviously, it was slightly tinged with some sadness because Ben, you know, our guitar player and keyboard player, he had a really bad year last year. He was diagnosed with cancer on one of his tonsils. He had a very big tumor, and it meant that he spent most of last year and the start of this year, you know, going through chemotherapy and radiotherapy and, you know, dealing with all the side effects. It meant that he didn't come to the studio very much at all. So we felt a little bit like somebody had chopped one of our legs off. But, you know, we got through it, and we kept sending him the tapes and kept sending him the music and just trying to cheer him up throughout the whole time. But it was a very strange period because we were, on one hand, having a great time making a record, and on the other hand, we were very concerned for our bandmate, you know.
Well, the album sounds great. We can't wait to see you out on the road. But Danny, what advice do you give to the young singers and bands today? Obviously, the business has radically changed, but you know the desire to make great songs and great live performances greater than ever. What advice do you give to the youngsters coming up?
I think the most important advice I can give to anybody is make sure that if you get an opportunity, make the most of it. Absolutely kill it. Don't regret anything afterwards. You know, you really, really need to make the most of it. Opportunities are hard to get, and if you get one, make sure everybody knows who you are by the time you're finished. Because if you don't, you may as well not have showed up. And I think that, for me, that's the most important thing.
Well, thanks so much again. Congratulations on the new album. We'll help spread the word and can't wait to see you rock it live.
Jay, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for the call, and I'd love to get out there and shake your hand one day soon.